believe that we can start, as some people are still gathering. My name is Andrus, and I'm moderating the current session of a very important topic regarding the blue economy and everything around seas and oceans, which is kind of an important topic. And the reason why Environmental Investment Center is involved, we have been actually involved in different environmental projects for 24 years already. And some of them, of the areas, have been connected to the seas as well. For example, we have been renovating quite many, or helping to renovate quite many sewage plants, water treatment plants, etc., which is kind of direct connection to the Baltic Sea, which is a very small sea, and the inflow of the from the rivers is quite important. And what we have seen is that kind of importance of the blue economy is kind of becoming, even in Estonia, where we have like 2/3 of our border is actually the coastline, and actually if you think about the territory of the country, it's 45% is actually sea. So we are a kind of sea country, but our feeling is that it has been kind of fragmented between the agricultural side, between the, for example, water treatment side, and then maybe some agriculture. But now the new things are coming into the picture, like agricultures, anything connected to shipping, green corridors, data exchange related to that, the autonomous vehicles, a lot of different measurement tools and data. So this is why we have been gathering here and our outstanding panelists. So I give a word to each of you, just a very short introduction like mine, and to explain that why this topic is really important and what is your role in all of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Kimberly Matisse, and I'm the head of an ocean foundation, a non-profit called Hub Ocean. We are a center for the fourth industrial revolution under the World Economic Forum, and we lead the Ocean Data Action Coalition for the high-level panel. What we're doing is a really ambitious project to build the world's collaborative ocean data digital public infrastructure. So to solve a huge amount of ocean challenges for countries, for science, all the way across industries, we need so much more data, right? We often describe this ocean as being very poorly governed and overexploited and largely unmapped. But I'm happy to say that there are real changes afoot, technology-driven, data-driven, which gives us new insights that we can speed along through transparency, through creating new pockets of value, deeper understandings of when you make an investment, what happens in the ocean, deeper understandings of all the complexity of the ocean. Imagine if we knew why the Oslo fjord was blackening, or imagine if we knew and could hold accountable every one of the entities who are responsible for, a lack of oxygen in places in the Baltic Sea and the ramifications of that. Globally, we operate globally with Hub Ocean. We're building out this data platform. We're launching it to the public at the beginning of next year. And it is meant to, as I said, be common goods for climate models of science to get much better, for countries to do the 30% protection of territories in great ways, right? To make planning and prioritization decisions, which are very, very complex. And for industry to chart a path, which is a departure from the past, I would say, and much more into taking pressure off the ocean to heal it. So data is our game, and action is what we try to do every day to really bring good things to happen to bear. So it's a pleasure to be here. We can talk about many of these different industries and speeding them along, and lots of topics dance upon the data. So we'll get into that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me, and I'm in great company. I think I'll start a bit further back in history. I'm sure that I'm not the only one who has been feeling a bit guilty about flying to the Global Climate Conference. I've also been feeling a bit guilty about that. But I've been telling myself that it's sort of okay because the last time I came to Dubai, I actually sailed here. And that was my main way of transportation for quite a few years because I was, in my previous life, I was a professional offshore sailor. So I sailed around Europe, and then I also lived here in Abu Dhabi and sailed to Dubai quite frequently. So the ocean and the marine environment holds a very dear place to me, even though I then decided to get an adult job, why I ended up speaking here. I'm currently working for a company called DIMEC. We are an innovation company. We are owned by industrial companies in Finland and also research institutes and universities. So we operate sort of in between sectors, I would say. I think our motto is, and it fits this climate action very well, is if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. So we bring together all different types of actors, companies. It's very much based on public-private partnerships. We have these innovation ecosystems that gather together the whole value chains in the Finnish industry and also internationally. And I think that is exactly the approach how to tackle these challenges that we're trying to solve here as well. So that's my background briefly, and great to be here.
My name is Hannes Limp. I am CEO and founder of SRC Group, which is active in the maritime and offshore sector. So we are refitting vessels and innovating new technologies to make maritime industry greener. Our company have also quite bold vision so that to be an enabler for maritime industry to achieve the environmental targets. So that from already the last 5 years has been so that majority from our business volumes is related to green transition, and it is increasing. So that as we are active worldwide, so that we have companies in different countries, and we are covering globally the maritime market. One of the reasons also that why I'm probably sitting here today, so that we solved with our team quite big thing in the maritime industry, so that how to store methanol as alternative fuel on board vessels, so that and this enables maritime industry to use more and more alternative fuels and make this change really happen.
Thank you. A chance to make some exercises as well, which is always a good thing. Hannes, you mentioned already the targets and all the agreements. We are here in COP as well to reach certain kind of agreements about the important things what we have to tackle related to environment and including the sea as well. And there is, of course, a lot of different regulations coming and different targets, but there seems to be some confusion as well. We have to be closely to zero net emissions according to International Maritime Organization, but in the Europe we are a few steps ahead already, including the shipping industry into the carbon trading system or ETS. So what is kind of your feeling about the different regulations and different targets what we have? What kind of implications it has had on the sector in which you are in? Maybe the data as such, maybe the engine makers, for example, and also the shipyards.
As you say, there's a lot of different regulations. I think most anyone who follows shipping would have said that the decision by the IMO back a few months ago was pretty landmark, right? That the IMO decided to up its ambitions for decarbonizing shipping by 2050. And there were a lot of people that worked really hard on that for a long time. And so that was a really important win. You know, from a data perspective, managing, even measuring your baseline carbon for any industry actor, for any company, company is a really difficult task. I don't know if anyone in the audience sits with the responsibility to do that for your company today. It's very difficult for a company to do it. It's extremely difficult for them to do it across their supply chains. And then if we think about shipping, you know, it's not just as easy as saying that there are sensors on every ship smokestack out there that can just measure the carbon going out. Most shipping carbon emissions estimates are, well, they're calculations, right? Or you can say calculations and estimates for, you know, sometimes very complex sets of things, right, based on the fuel and the engine and the circumstances and so forth. And so there's a lot of imprecision in that data alone. And when you try to use that data for very important things, it really matters to be, not to be pinpoint accurate necessarily, but to be in the neighborhood of very clear about what your emissions are. And so in the ETS, when we start to see that someone's going to have to pay for all the carbon for every ship that stops at a European port, well then of course it matters a whole lot more, to be precise, doesn't it, about the carbon that's being emitted from the ships. Equally, the ESG-related disclosures, so TNFD, CSRD, there's a whole raft of letters which relate basically to the fact that companies are being asked to and forced to disclose not only carbon emissions, but their impact on nature. And those are coming like a freight train, and it's very complex terrain for companies, again, to figure out how they should report on these things. So one of the things that I just think is important, everything I just said right now is about relying on companies to disclose their carbon, isn't it? But the interesting thing for us as data specialists, we're also working really hard to figure out ways to collect data and do data exercises that run way ahead, sometimes of a company or a world's willingness to be transparent. There's so much data out there that these exercises are becoming super interesting. And so if any company really thinks that they need a place to hide, well, I'm here to tell you, advanced data exercises and also the applications of AI are creating fewer and fewer places if you want to hide. And let's be clear, you know, if you're forward-leaning and you're investing in decarbonizing before the rest of the field, then transparency is your friend. You don't want a place to hide. You want to get credit for those investments. It's really tough right now when the field is intransparent and you're trying to be a leader and you're trying to invest, and there's no way to reward that through transparency. So at Hub Ocean, we have devised ways using partnerships with the Global Fishing Watch, AIS data, transponders on ships. We take that data, we put it through publicly available algorithms, we do data techniques on it. We can tell you a pretty good estimate for 250,000 ships on the ocean. Everywhere they flow, everywhere they go, every port they're in, where they stand, what they're carrying. The exercise goes on to say, let's link that data to the ownership behind the ships, and then TNFD's requiring banks and their shipping portfolios and shipping companies, right, to disclose much more about exactly, you know, their carbon emissions, their NOx, their SOx, and their impact as they sail around vulnerable ecological systems. So this is where the field is going. It'll go there by data techniques, and it'll go there by disclosures. And that's kind of a bit of what's happening, and you can take it from shipping to very many other industries, but things are really, really unfolding in the kind of the ocean data landscape, if you will, and the industrial use of the ocean and the impact it creates.
Yeah, there is really a lot of different kind of data we have available, and what is important regarding the CO2 emission is probably something which is moving us mostly, and because of the quite clear regulation and well, relatively easily understandable calculation method, it seems to be easy, but there is a lot of different things. But if we come more on the technical side, then is this already impacting your industry players in your country, in Finland and in the Baltics? And do you see some kind of other implications in addition to GHG as well?
Regulation in general?
Well, regulation and data and all related to that.
Well, as I got to know that I would be part of this panel, I did a round of interviews from our shareholders, Wärtsilä, and my Turku, who just finished building the largest cruise ship in the world. One of their clearest messages about regulation was that it should set the boundaries and the sort of baseline. However, it shouldn't be a barrier for innovation because that's the way forward in green transition. We can't exactly go back in time to when ships were made out of wood and men were made of steel. That would be nice, but I don't think it's going to happen. So regulation in general should be a driver for innovation and not a barrier, like it currently is in autonomous maritime or autonomous shipping, for instance. But that's a completely other topic, I think. It should guide the funding to sort of lay the route for the green transition of the marine industry. I think that's, but also the fuels, I think you might have something to say about those.
Absolutely. This is affecting all these rules and regulations, so affecting a lot, the shipping industry, the maritime industry overall, but not only the rules and regulations, but also our financing system and access to the capital is influencing the industry a lot. Also, customers are influencing the industry so that who are requiring the more sustainable transportation for their goods. So that this is also, these layers are also more, not only the regulatory wise. So, but of course, regulations have to be clear and messages have to be same to everyone. So that in the industry, because maritime industry is the global industry. So that I think that this is the main thing. So because maritime industry is adapting with that. So even though that in the moment we have quite ambitious goals, but also Kimberly mentioned so that just in June IMO decided to take a huge ambition so that to make shipping emission neutral, so that 2050, and there are a lot of milestones in between, but we don't have technology for that in the moment. So that this is for the ship owners the biggest challenge that where to invest. So, and it means that ship owners have to start, they have to improve continuously, and they have to start to make investments already today. And it means that there is a lot of different kind of technologies that have to be integrated, starting from digitalizations or assisted propulsions up to alternative fuels. So, and today when we are speaking about alternative fuels, example, so that then also LNG as a fossil fuel is today alternative fuel up to 2040 at least. So there are many other alternatives. There's and biomethanol, ammonia, hydrogen. We have battery and hybrid solutions. So that there is a lot of technologies that can be used and which are suitable for different vessel operations. But when we are looking at today's statistic, then we see huge uptake of the methanol for shipping industry at the moment. So that even though that methanol is starting to take the market share from LNG. Example, the latest statistic about the container ship orders, new builds from the world, so that from ordered vessels, more than 80% are with alternative fuels. From these alternative fuels, more than 50% is methanol, and then there's LNG and the other fuels. So that as it is most suitable for today's vessels, it is most easiest to use. You can use in the conventional engines with that, and this storage is also solved. It is in the moment like most like developed or ready technology to use. So but of course others are coming as well, so that in the closest future. So that but it's maybe short about that.
Yeah, but thank you, Hannes. And maybe we can continue with technological side. That actually one thing is to choose which technology to use, but actually it changes a lot in the vessel. And maybe you can briefly just give some example why your product is so important, because there is actually a lot of different metrics which have to be changed in a specific vessel if you change the fuel, not just engine, but a lot of different things.
Yeah, as alternative fuels are, but it's the main topic, so that we're speaking about the shipping, so that maybe in this point of view it's a really relevant question, so that we just as an example, so that all alternative fuels energy density is very low, so that it means that to have the same autonomy for the vessel what they are using today. If methanol, you need to have like a little bit more than 2 times like fuel on board. When you're speaking of ammonia, then you need to have like a little bit more than 3 times like volume on board. When we're speaking about hydrogen, then it is 4 to 7 times more, so that storage capacity. But as this storage capability is not easy to achieve, especially with already existing vessels which we have in the world, and we know that vessels' lifetime is very long. Like they are like 25-30 years like life cycle, so that for the vessel. It means to achieve environmental targets, we have to also refit the existing fleet, so that not only to build new ones. But very briefly, so that what we did, so that there is 3 major like issues are with the alternative fuels overall. So that number 1 is ship engine like readiness to burn alternative fuels, which are engine manufacturers like road to solve, and this is more or less solved today, so that major like engine manufacturers like also Wärtsilä from Finland, they have their solutions for that, so that and for retrofitting and also building new ones. Then second biggest issue has been so that how to store it on board the vessel, so because you need to have so much more like volume, so that then we as a subsea group that we solve this issue, so that especially with methanol, so that which doesn't need like cooling and atmospheric like storage, so that and third like big problem is related with alternative like fuels is fuel availability, so that this is also one of the biggest excuses usually from ship owners what you hear, so that you don't have these alternative fuels available today just to sail with them. So, but this is also coming, so that this demand is rising, and also offering is coming, so that we know a lot of like projects like which are like announced like every month at least one new like production capability and fuel availability, so that about alternative fuels. So it's shortly about.
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned that it's more or less solved regarding the engine. Is it so? If you look at the data, then the TRL levels are not there for methane, not to mention ammonia, which is tier 3 of the 9 levels before to become a real thing in the market. What is your feeling that is it technologically is something there already and operating? Is it really solved as long as Hannes can make all the other things happen?
Thank you. I think that the direction is definitely right, and I think that the speed is also quite fascinating how everything is changing. I think Hannes probably has more historical insight on this than me, but anyhow. But how I went about this was I first called Maya, who was just finished the cruise liner. And I was, so what would you need to be more sustainable? And they said, okay, if you're going to Dubai, can you tell them that we need more greener fuels? Can you just tell the sheikhs that, make better fuels? I was like, okay, I'll do that. Then they also said that, and another thing that part of our emissions come from is steel. So then I was like, well, wait a minute, we are actually working with SSAB at the moment in this sustainable or fossil-free steel project. So then I had a chat with them, and they said that, yeah, we are going to make fossil-free steel. There is already this recycled steel coming. Okay, so then I was like, okay, so Meyer's case is steel-wise solved. And then I asked that, don't you have Wärtsilä's engines in the cruise liner? Yeah, we have 6 of them. They are LNG engines. So then I called Wärtsilä. And then we got into this ammonia and methanol discussion. And Wärtsilä has just published this, I think it's the first in the world, 4-stroke engine solution that's ammonia-based. I don't know exactly what the engine solution means, but I think that it's a greater package than just the engine. It provides also all of the structure that's needed around it. So that's great. That's carbon-free, even though the TRL level isn't quite there yet. I think I'm also team methanol. I've discussed this a lot with him, and I think I've jumped ships, to say maybe, to the methanol ship, and I think at the moment that's probably our best option, and Wärtsilä is also doing a lot with that. But then it's also providing this global network for fuel availability and all of that. But I was really impressed when I had a chat with Wärtsilä because their impact can be so huge. They're currently servicing half of world ships globally, and every 3rd ship in the world has some of their technical solutions or parts. So what they do, and that they base their whole business model around decarbonization, can actually have a huge impact. So I've been very impressed when I've had these discussions with the marine industry, because I think that the ambition and the willingness level is definitely there. Then I think it also comes to propulsion, and everything is connected. It's port operations and being timely in ports, not wasting your time. So it's I feel like I've opened this Pandora's box, and suddenly there is so much to know and how everything connects. That's probably why you exist.
Yes, actually, Kimberly, you have made a quote very strong, saying that we will change the fate of the oceans through data, technology, and collaboration. So, quite bold statement, isn't it? If you narrow it down maybe to shipping industry, then what would be your next pick? That how in this picture, in your mind, we get the biggest impact on what we measure?
Well, let's say there's a very big we in that statement, that we can change the world or will change the world with data, technology, and collaboration. There's a huge we that requires, right? Just in the data landscape alone, every pocket of data that's ocean relevant needs to be opened up. That's by no means one hub ocean, but it's one hub ocean interoperably serving as a heavy node in a world that's increasingly connected together, right? So for shipping emissions, now we've talked a lot about engines, retrofitting, and fuels, but anybody want to take a guess at how much of the decarbonization of shipping can be achieved purely by addressing the efficiency? So fuel efficiency, primarily. You know, I'm sure. Anybody in the audience want to take a guess? Efficiency alone. Something like 35%, purely by efficiently running today's equipment. Can you imagine? So of course we need 2/3 from all of the new fuels and the new engines and all of that, but that says something really profound about a number of different technologies that need to go to work on the apparatus that we have today. And those technologies, a lot of that's developed already. So I used to work for Microsoft, and if I go back a decade, we talked about the digitalization of shipping. And then we talked about it again, and then we all worked on it again, and then we talked about it some more, and then 5 years goes by, and 10 years goes by, and for a decade, there wasn't a lot of maturity or censoring or a data-rich landscaping of shipping. But that's really now finally changing. And so it's with those sensors and combining lots of data and then making loops of feedback with that data to the operational steering of the ships, right? Or on a grand scale, you said ships. Why are ships still waiting at ports for days and days and days and days and days? It's a fascinating, very fragmented data mess under the problem. And the we, Hub Ocean can play a tiny role in that relative to the we, but just think about that. If we can finally scoop up the right sources of data, calculate and derive and model the rest of the sources that we can't literally get, we can actually change in a fundamental way. I mean, in 2023 that we still have this completely fragmented, landscape of huge inefficiencies going on. It's changeable, and it's changing now. So I'm very, very excited about what digitalization and then getting more advanced. AI in this space is about machine learning. It's not magic. It's about having a massive amount of data that you can just run a huge amount of iterations on and say, I'm this ship, the weather's like this, I've got these goods on board, I've got this kind of equipment, and I need to get from A to B. How do I do that? Dynamically, updating every minute along my voyage, how do I do that? That's the kind of stuff that machine learning and AI can help us do now. And it has amazing potential to pull carbon emissions out of the system. That I'm very, very excited about. I can talk about a lot of other things too, but let's say that's massively important and right in front of us, very achievable.
Yes, probably we are at the edge of something which is kind of making the digitalization really relevant, and all the data, the technology is finally there, I would say, and the ability. Regarding the Baltic Sea, for example, we have the first green corridors in place, and basically what that means is that the harbour and the ship should be able to communicate quite smoothly, and everybody is knowing that what kind of fuels are needed, and on shore everybody is prepared on the things what actually are needed by the ships, and they know what kind of ships there will be in the future. So, and we have internally among us discussed about this kind of test bed for maybe the industry as a Baltic Sea, which is a small sea in essence, including 9 countries on the shores. How have these impact this kind of common standards, and especially the we question coming on the board if you talk to your clients, both of you, Johannes and Lisbeth?
Also it is the same thing that what we expressed also earlier, and what is Mermaid made a statement, so that let's make 1% every day, so that to achieve the goals, and this is the same thing, so that when we are doing together with the neighbors, like something a little bit like more every day, so that like this green corridors. And I think that the idea to have a Baltic Sea as one big green corridor is just an amazing idea and very achievable. So that except with one neighbor probably, but all the rest I think so is achievable. So that it makes a sure difference.
Thank you. And I think that also, because there is already such good collaboration between the countries around the Baltic Sea, at least let's say most of them. I think that also creates a good playground to develop this further. So I think we should definitely look into that.
Just building on green corridors. Maersk McKinney Miller's Center for Zero Carbon Shipping, located in Copenhagen, that much of the industry is participating in. They're doing some of the best work in the world on green corridor modeling. So they're also involved in work specifically on Baltic Sea-related green corridors, but some of the very, very largely trafficked, heavily carbon-emitting routes globally are now involved in these experiments. And if you don't know what green corridors is, it's like, imagine this puzzle where, right, if you're running big ships across, say, from Singapore to Rotterdam, and someone tells you, yes, there's going to be availability of fuel along all of those routes in the future, just invest in a massive way and take a huge risk with new engines and new builds and all of this that are going to be with you for 35 years, and just hope it comes true. And then if you're the fuel people, you're saying, well, I could put in a huge investment in the plants that it takes to make this kind of fuel, the bunkering stations along the way, the entire apparatus. But is this going to take 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? It's a huge amount of capital at risk. So green corridors are about getting all the parties around the table to share risk together. That's simply what they are, but it's a very, very powerful idea. And so whether it's in the Baltics itself or globally, creating one green corridor at a time, de-risking and making decisions go faster and moving everybody forward is a really, really big idea.
Yeah, narrowing it down maybe to the shipbuilding, if we look at the LCA of the shipbuilding, then this kind of building and dismantling is very important. It's not only the efficiency and the fuel and usage of fuel as such. Therefore, it seems that the retrofitting of different vessels on the world is quite important topic. But I don't know if you know, but looking at different analysis, it seems that there is 2-3 times more capacity needed from the shipyards in order to do that. In the entire fleet, there are about 9,000 to 12,000 different big container ships and cruise ships in the world, for example, which is kind of good news for you, Hannes, isn't it? So what is the business case? Is it really happening? Are we ready? And maybe one being from a small corner of the world, what is the option there for smaller players, for smaller countries like your company in that value chain?
Maybe I will start from the bigger picture even, so that just to get understanding, so that in the moment is evaluated that approximately from whole world fleet, like 10% is suitable for refitting for alternative fuels. So that we are not speaking like percentage-wise, like 50 or 60 or 80%, so 10%. And this is, but still it is quite huge amount. So that for the market. Definitely majority for these refits will be done in Asia, so that specifically in China, so that probably the biggest share, so that because it is one of the main trading spots, and also there is other benefits, so that financial benefits, that's why the vessels are refitted there. So yes, I think that this peak is coming somewhere plus minus 2030, maybe 28 up to 33 or something like that. But I am quite sure that the industry is ready for that, so that is making the steps so that to accommodate all these requirements, so that, and also technologies developing and etc. So that it is a challenge, so that especially for huge vessels or the biggest vessels in the world, because they have possibility. They don't have so much possibilities to choose the locations, because there is not so many facilities for them available. But as there is enough time for preparing, so that I believe that the industry is capable to do it and make it happen.
wanted to add one thing, coming back to your first question about regulation, and I think it plays a key role in this as well. The ships that we're designing currently, or the engines, they will be there in 30 years, and if the times are moving this fast, the regulation is basically the only way to guide the innovation route and sort of anticipate the future, where the companies need to place their investments, and also countries really, for their energy investments. So regulation, I think, is a key there if we want to be able to refit the engines and the ships in the future, respond to those demands as well.
Yep. We're kind of running into the end of our session now. I will give the floor maybe to a few questions as well if you have some. Okay.
Well, this is more for Kimberly. So, what if we use data to also calculate the oxygen levels in the water and the pollution levels in the water? Will the investments come faster then? What do you think?
Yeah, because it's shocking.
Well, so, about a year ago, this incredibly determined woman came up to me at a conference, and she said, I have to talk to you, I have to talk to you, I have to talk to you. Okay, what do you want to talk to me about? She has been spending the last 20 years of her life aggregating data on oxygen in the ocean. And she was so desperate because this very scientific, well-grounded project had run out of funding many times. And funding for scientific projects often runs in 4-year cycles. And it often produces what I would call, we talk about stranded assets sometimes. I would say these are stranded data assets, where you've got this incredible, valuable set of oxygen data, which is one of the most critical variables for the ocean, as the Baltic Sea really knows, right? And she had nowhere to put that data. The scraps of data she was basically gathering up and caretaking them on PCs and on, apparatus and on a part of a university's cloud and on a this and on a that. And just to meet that, it just speaks volumes to the fragmentation that we have of critically important data in the world. So she was desperate to say, can Hub Ocean be a platform for the enduring life of this ocean oxygen data set, and can you escort it further so that it has impact? And the answer, thankfully, is we're set up to do exactly that. So I get to say to this person, absolutely, we would love to host that data set. We would love to put it together with other data sets to make the kinds of things that you're talking about come true. So you pick oxygen, so I had to tell that story, but there's so many variables out there that, again, when we put them together and start to allow people to visualize, to your point, you told me a story outside, right? If you really understand that off the coast of, I think you said it was Florida, that it became so bad at a certain point in time with the ocean and algae blooms and everything reacting, that literally they were bringing out, machines like you see in aquariums, right, to oxygenate the water in order, as a desperation. Imagine the ocean, the size and scale of the ocean, with some machines to oxygenate the water off the coast of Florida. It's desperation, right? And oftentimes we're operating really, really blind in terms of what measures we need to take. And there's so much early warning signal that we could have as well. If we just get this data aggregated and put out there, we can understand and stop some of these things well before they're happening and make strong cases for. In some cases, the trade-offs that governments are making, they're just super tough, right? Do I give more room to offshore wind? Do I give more room to tourism? Do I give more room to this? Do I continue to let fishing happen like this? I got a problem with an ecosystem, less fish, seems to be all very, very, very vulnerable, but I got people feeding on it. What do I do? To inform those kinds of choices with data is ultra, ultra important. So I think the answer is absolutely yes to your question.
So we have run out of time totally, unfortunately. As you see, the topic is quite huge, quite big, quite complicated as the sea is. And the reason why we choose mainly the shipping and the GHG greenhouse gases is because it's the easiest way, like scope 1 and 2 compared to scope 3, for example. So we simply don't know all the answers yet. Anyway, it's not a very small thing, even if the shipping industry is kind of responsible for about 3% of the emissions in the world. There was a story I read about in Estonia. There is a basically rebuilding of ferry ship ended up with a 1.2 thousand tons per annum avoidance of greenhouse gases, which is basically comparable to the 700 people bank in Estonia, international airport, and the yearly emissions of that bank. So actually, it is an important topic. And unfortunately, we cannot elaborate very deeply anymore. But if some of you would like to stress anything, we have a few seconds.
Okay, thank you. It is a huge topic, and there would be so much more to say. I hope that next time we get together or get to talk about this, I know that we're in a climate conference now, and I think that the marine industry is doing big things to climate action and decarbonization. But I hope that in the future it would be more about nature-related things, because climate action is not necessarily always nature-friendly, but nature action is almost always climate-friendly. So I'm hoping that this discussion will fairly soon move to that direction.
Okay, that's it for today. For the next discussions we certainly will have in the future, and hopefully you will be engaged in these discussions as well. I thank you for distinguished panelists. It was really interesting for me to prepare it and to listen to your ideas around the topic, and thank you, dear audience, for being here today, even though it's already almost late. So thank you again, and see you soon.